So we'll start with the journey part, because most people have not been here for your previous time, so you can make it fresh and new. You were at Oxford, right? And, you know. What's your?
Well, I've worked in Oxford, yeah, but I studied architecture and came to Los Angeles to study film and design at the Art Center College of Design, and met a really good friend who had this idea that we were going to work on this film called Apocalypse Now, and we did. And I was lucky enough to get folded into the art department. Dean Tavoularis was my mentor, and I spent 5 years working and listening and working.
And that's the Zoetrope period, right?
Yeah, Zoetrope period. And then they kicked me out of the nest.
Lee?
I went to art school, and I left, and I entered the film industry as a runner, and then became an art department assistant, and then I became Stephenie McMillan's assistant, and I worked with her and Stuart Craig for 10 years. I trained with her for. And in fact, I was on the stage actually with Stephenie a couple of years ago, and she said I was a very good student. So,
So you both learned on the job.
yeah.
So, Dennis, the biggest question that comes to mind is, how did you begin to determine how much space you needed for? It was trench after trench and underground bunkers and open fields and ruins. How did it all connect? And I heard there were rumors flying that it all needed to be contiguous. But can you tell us how do you even start to break that into a manageable set?
Well, everything starts with the script, and Sam did an amazing job, and Christy, to give us a document. The document timed out to be 1 hour and 58 minutes, and so we basically measured it inch by inch to get to that end point. This was a highly choreographed film. I mean, I didn't know that much about the Great War when I read this, but you're certainly aware of it. And what I love about film is you get to learn a lot about process. Each one is a different process, and it's only through 40 years, 30 films. I think you could have done something like this. I mean, this was so hard. You cannot stop thinking about how to solve the problem. And of course, Roger, I've known Roger for 28 years and Sam for 20. And so we just sat down and said, how do we do this? And basically we started with stakes in the ground. And we walked it, and we walked it, and we walked it, and we walked it tirelessly. And then eventually we had our young boys, Dean and George, come in, and of course they changed everything because they're young. And, okay, how do we now? Okay, so we changed everything, and changed everything, and changed everything. It was a constant, and Sam says, no, I want to move left here, I want to move right. And Roger said, well, where's the camera? The camera's got to, we're going to be pushing, then we're going to be pulling, but how do we get him around in one shot? And you were spinning, literally spinning all day long trying to figure out how to do it. So obviously it starts with the stakes in the ground and getting a measurement, and then having, of course, one thing. We knew we had to stitch things together. So you find a piece of ground that you can actually have some distance for the shot, and then so we basically took all of the pieces eventually, and we stitched them together to appear as one shot. Now, Sam and I had done Spectre together, my last Bond film with him, and the opening sequence of was the Day of the Dead, and I'd found about 10 or 12 locations that I thought would work, and he came to me and says, "Do you think we can make this look like one shot?" And it took me about 2 months to plan it, and we shot it. Hoyte van Hoytman was our DP, and we kind of wrestled through the whole thing. This was luckily the Mexico City gave us pretty much carte blanche on where we wanted to go and all this, and so that was it was pretty amazing. So we said we have some knowledge of how to do this, but still it's a different, whole different narrative. So, we just worked hard, and it was something that I'll never do again.
Yeah. Well, there's always other wars, you know. I mean, well, you know, the choreography is so immaculate in that beginning sequence. I remember watching and going, at some point I finally realized the camera never stopped moving. They just kept talking, and the set just kept evolving. And finding all those bits and pieces. I remember when things, you know, you make a war movie, you get some stuff. Lee, all right, so I need a few thousand brass artillery casings and some blown up artillery, and, you know, and on. And we're going to bury this head at this point in this trench. And, you know, all those beats, everything has to be preconceived, obviously. So it's like there's nothing accidental in this movie.
No. I mean, like, in most films, you have, like, set A and set B, and you cut between set A and set B. But we had the bit all in between to get from A to B. So, like, some of our trenches, like the first line trench, you know, that set was about 1,800 feet long. You know, and you burnt through as George and Dean walked, you know, because they were younger than us. You know, we had to build more and more trench. You know, but we learned that through the rehearsal process with Sam.
Yeah, you get all the stakes in the right places before you bring the earth-moving equipment, right?
Yeah.
Or did you hire teams of Boy Scouts to come and dig it for you?
No, you don't do that. Well, just imagine digging in a trench that you have all these people in, and then you wake up one morning and there's 3 feet of snow, and then you wake up the next day and it's all flooded, and that was in English winters.
It makes it real, right?
Oh, it was real. I have really good boots and really good rain gear.
Yeah, I had 4 sets of it, and you had one that was always totally covered in mud, one was wet, one was drying, and then you just rotate.
Well, you also were able to distinguish. There's the mud English trench, and then you get into the German concrete reinforced trench, and then you have your chalk trench. And it's interesting how much storytelling you did with just terra firma.
So I want to know how large of an army you had, Lee, to execute that.
Millions. It was,
yeah, we had a huge kind of props team, because we were dressing several sets at the same time as well. The first and second line trench were actually built on an airfield because the studio couldn't contain the set. So we built that there, but we also shot on Salisbury Plain, the white trench at the end, and that in itself was 1,200 feet. So we had a props team in each of those, and probably maybe 10 to 20 men per set, so probably about 100 guys. Yeah.
How long would it take you to make the rounds to check on everyone?
Most of the day, yeah.
Yeah, you spend a lot of time driving and walking. I mean, you put I'd put anywhere from 5 to 10 miles a day. We would be. It was a really physical film.
It'll be probably the most fittest I'll ever be on any film ever.
And I just imagine the grips running, carrying all that equipment, and the handoffs and the things. There's a great YouTube of the making of it. I suggest everybody kind of watch this. It gives you just a little hint of the journey. We did that at the end. We said, well, people are going to want to know this, and I don't want to have to explain it every time. So let's do something that we, that can at least show the tip of the iceberg on it. And yeah.
And did you have secondary production trenches that ran parallel with the shooting trenches, or was it just all?
No.
Just in those trenches?
You watch the film. We're in the trenches following the whole time.
So there's nothing hiding equipment or anything else in it?
No.
And it was all one long gray day, right?
This film is so mind-boggling. I mean, in the technical side of it, just how do you hear the actors? Where's the equipment? I mean, I can't even think about it anymore. I'm so tired.
Well, we'll talk about bunkers now.
And
well, the emotional side of the thing that when I arrived in London, I said, well, there's a team of research people who were experts at the war, and I didn't realize, first of all, how passionate everybody was about this film. It was a vibration that lasted the entire film. How we're going to go about doing this, because they need to tell that story accurately, and how that felt from all of the stories of all the grandfathers and great uncles that had told the stories about it. And that was the passion, that was the driving force of really everybody's life every day, was, you were never tired because you realized, I can't be tired. Because I looked at 50,000 photographs when I arrived, and I went through and I culled through all those daily to arrive at basically the sequences that we ended up putting together. And that was just an arduous task on itself, and then trying to find the rhythm of the film and the color palette and the story within it. Was an amazing journey. I'm glad I had a chance to do it.
And in going through all that research, did you identify different beats that gave you moments that you then incorporated through that journey through those trenches? Because it's very unique. It's not just one running trench. You've got so many personal stories going on throughout that whole journey through.
There was a personal story every inch. I mean, Lee dressed, can you imagine those guys sitting in there waiting to go over? And they built lives. It was their home. It was their home for 4 years of living.
There was an aspect of it which is, even though it was a film set and, it was completely real, it was nothing in comparison to what really happened to the soldiers there. And what really drove us was always to try and tell the truth, a truthful account of how I felt. And yeah, these guys lived there, for 4 years. And actually, what was amazing was when we were doing the first tests of the barbed wire, Sam and we did the first kind of look. And Sam was like, oh, it's great, that's probably 19 kind of 15. Give me 19 kind of 17. So we broke the barbed wire, we reworked it, we burnt it, we pulled it apart, we reworked it, we repatched it again and again and again until we ended up with this large kind of sculptural bird's nest.
But that was really, every set was that way. It had to go through this journey. And it was just so hard to find, we just kept pushing and pushing and pushing, and then because Sam was running all over as far disconnected to us in a lot of ways, and so we finally all connected, and we looked at it and said, eventually, that feels right, and that was like the day before we shot.
How much time did you have?
I don't even remember. It seemed like not enough.
It's a blur.
It was.
about
It
you?
didn't see. I don't know.
It was,
How long? I have no idea.
We started the prep. I think the art department started in the October, and we shot at the beginning of February, and we had about 14 to 16 weeks or something. It wasn't a lot of time, but actually within that was also the rehearsal kind of process. So we were marking out the sets and drawing them up all at the same time, and there was a space at the studio where we had just all these cardboard boxes which were being used as walls for Sam to actually do all the rehearsals in. And then from the rehearsals, we were given changes to how the set had to be used and therefore how it was going to be shot, and then it would be altered.
Sam Mendes was, needless to say, so passionate about this film. I mean, all films are that way, of course. You know, you want to make a good film. But this is my 5th film with him. I've never seen him in such a space, and it was quite beautiful to watch, honestly, because the end result of where he pushed us, everybody, Roger, everybody, every department was pushed to a point where we were so exhausted because he wanted to get it right. And I can't countless stories of people who would come out from the accounting department and they would go into the trenches and they would start crying. I mean, the emotional content of this film I don't care about anything. I don't care about awards. I don't care about anything. Just to go through an experience like this is something that I would wish all of you would have a chance to do in your life, because it's affirmation for where we are in this planet today, of all the hard work that everybody's done to try and give us, freedom, give us some respect, and to me, that's in the end. If I don't do another film, I'm a happy man.
Well, I hope that's not the case. I mean, the happy part's good. And then actually that's a segue into what would you recommend or advise to people that want to follow you into this profession? You've had a moment to think about it now.
Start with Lee.
Do a World War I movie, you know. I would say mentoring, actually trying to find, in my case, I worked for Stephenie for kind of 10 years. It taught me everything which I know. And don't be in a rush to actually get somewhere. Learn everything you can in every field, from a runner to art assistant to a draftsman to doing kind of standby action on camera to where you are then, learn.
Yeah, I would agree. Mentoring is the key to it. And just spend a lot of time listening. Don't try and compete. Just listen to, watch films. I go back into silent films. Go, watch. Go to TCM. Look at the history, and continue to learn. The biggest volume of information is going to be in what's in the past, and bring that forward. Try and find somebody's work that you like, follow it, and see try and dissect that. Try and see the emotional content of it. I mean, I was lucky to be, be working under Dean Tavoularis for 5 years, and I listened a lot. But what they had done in The Godfathers, to me, changed cinema. All of a sudden, there was an emotional, for me, it was an emotional content that came through. And I listened and tried to absorb those, why those emotional things are valuable to us, and how we can create create something that when you look at a piece of work, you actually feel what it's like.
Well, I think you're both excellent examples of good mentorship parenting, and thank you so much, and just beautiful work. Could we set up Once Upon a Time, please?